Okay, the iPhone 12 mini. Of the 4 iPhones that came out this fall, this is the one that's been most interesting to me personally because of its size. I like the way they feel in your hand. I like how they fit in your pocket. I like small phones. Now, because of the timing of this video, I think most people who are watching this know a lot about the iPhone 12 already. So I'm going to focus this video on two things in regards to the mini. Number one, the kind of size, like what it means, like the benefits and negatives that come with a small sized phone like this, a small sized iPhone. But secondly, I want to focus on battery life because that was one of the major concerns I had about this phone, right? When you go small like this, you can only shrink components to a certain amount, right? And the battery in here is a lot smaller physically than the other 3 phones from the lineup. Okay, I want to draw your attention to this phone right now. This is the iPhone SE, like the second generation one. This is the iPhone that I use the most of right now. It's actually a modified one. If you know your iPhones, the iPhone SE came with a black bezel in the front, but I swapped it out because I'm a sucker for stuff like this. But this phone had a battery, I want to use the word issue, but that's not really the word, a battery concern. Because I knew that if you use this phone kind of beyond light regular use, it would suck batteries really quickly. If I play games on this thing, it just chews through battery life like crazy. If I take this thing for like a bunch of photos, it chews it up quickly. But it's okay when you're just using it for emails and just like browsing stuff. Now, back to this one, the iPhone 12 mini. This is an even smaller phone than the iPhone SE. It's incredibly nice to hold in your hand. It's not as small as like the original SE, but it's still very compact and very one-handable. Now, despite being such a compact phone, the screen size is very respectable. Like it's a lot bigger than, let's say, the current SE, right? It's just like so much more real estate on the 12 mini, and it's an awesome screen. It's an OLED panel, high pixel density, great brightness. You're gonna like this screen. The notch and the bezels on the 12 mini are actually a little bit smaller than the other 3 iPhone 12s. It's barely noticeable, like you gotta look for it and you gotta kind of compare them side by side, but if you do, you will notice that the notch is a little bit smaller and the bezels are just a little bit thinner than the rest of the iPhone 12 family. But the functionality of Face ID and that front-facing camera remain unchanged across all 4 phones. So the physical characteristics of the iPhone 12 mini are how you'd expect, right? Easy to hold, easy to use, and very compact. Now, let's move this conversation over to battery life. The way that I test battery life when it comes to iPhones is that I run a website loop. It refreshes every few minutes, and it's just a very consistent but primitive test, right? I compared the 12 mini to several other iPhones, and a few things stood out to me. Number one, the battery life on the 12 mini is respectable. Better than I thought it would be, definitely better than the SE, and it's just a solid battery life. Not as good as the Pro Max though, right? There is a clear winner in that regard. But when you do something like this, a big shrink in phone size, you're gonna have shorter battery life. But the other thing I noticed is that on the 12 mini, it seems to be more affected by your type of content that you're viewing, more so than the other 3 phones. Like you saw that test on the dark website, this lasts quite a bit longer than the white website. And that's a result of the OLED tech, right? When you have a dark pixel, it's not using nearly as much energy as a brightly lit white pixel. So battery life on the iPhone 12 mini is solid, but if you're someone who uses dark mode on your phone and you view dark websites, it'll just go a little bit further than you would expect. So yeah, that's basically the iPhone 12 mini. I do want to leave this conversation with one last thought. Small phones are not common in 2020, and I think they're actually quite difficult to do properly, right? If you look at the iPhone 12, like the regular iPhone 12, and you compare it to the iPhone 12 mini, all the components that are in here as well, and they don't shrink it coming across, right? It's not like the camera module gets smaller. It's not like the RAM and the SoC and like all the components inside here, they don't get smaller when you put it into the 12 mini. They stay the same size, and it's a challenge to fit all that into a much smaller chassis. So you have to shrink the battery and you have to make some compromises, right? So like, for example, the wireless charging, MagSafe charging is a little bit slower on this one, and the speakers on the mini don't sound as rich as the 12, even though they're really close. So it's not a compromise-free shrink, right? When you go to a smaller phone, you're gonna take a hit. But the way that Apple's done it is that the hit is almost imperceptible. It feels like they did a really good job in the shrink, and seemingly no one else is doing it, right? Even Apple couldn't do this last year. This is the first time they've had a small phone that was this good. I do wish the pricing was a little bit better. I'll be honest, like if I I feel like this should be the $699 phone, and this should be a $599 phone. That would be ideal to me, but yeah, Apple's pricing is always going to be that way, it seems. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. I'll see you guys next time.